Fanyus, please don't skin me alive for this video. That was very Valerie Cherish. Whew. Hi everyone, my name is Eric. I am a former competitive figure skater and this is my figure skating reaction series. A quick little bit of background about me. I am a 5-time US National Championships competitor, including placing in the top 20 at the senior level in 2016. I trained for about 15 years in the Chicagoland area with top coaches, including most recently Olympic coach Denise Myers. Long story short, I know my stuff. I am so excited by all of the quadruple axels being thrown around these days. The quad axel is the hardest attempted jump in figure skating thus far, with no one having ever landed it cleanly in competition yet. Or in practice, I believe. I analyzed Yuzuru Hanyu's quad axel attempt at the Japanese Nationals a few weeks ago in a previous video, so please go watch that if you haven't yet. And then Artur, sorry if I'm not pronouncing that right, Artur Dmitriev attempted a quad axel at the US Nationals about 2 weeks ago, and it was pretty awesome as well, so I thought I'd compare the two. In this video, I'm going to compare these two great quadruple axel attempts by Yuzuru Hanyu and Artur Dmitriev in the following categories. Number 1, entrance/speed. Number 2, height/length. Number 3, rotation and landing. And number 4, overall technique and thoughts. Please note that I do know that these individual attempts of this jump do not necessarily reflect kind of all of their attempts in practice. However, I will say that number 1, Artur's attempt was quite good, so I feel like that's a good one to look at. And then number 2, based on some of Yuzu's kind of practice videos at Japanese Nationals, in addition to the actual one that he attempted in competition, I feel like it's like somewhat or pretty representative of where he's at with the quad axel right now. So take this analysis with like a slight grain of salt, but hopefully not too many grains. All right, let's get this going. Praying to the copyright gods right now that this will be fine. So I'm gonna plan to show you their jumps side by side, first at full speed and then kind of at like a slow motion frame by frame sort of thing. Basically, I tried to align their takeoffs. So like on an axel jump, right? You're jumping forward and taking off before you land. So I tried to time it where that frame or second where they get into the air aligns with each other. So in general, by the way, I think this is a good way to analyze jumps in skating for those out there who want to do it themselves. But time it so that right when one's getting off the ice, the other one is as well, so that it can be a fair comparison overall. And then I'll try to reference the videos as well throughout when I'm doing the analysis, but it also might be a little bit more of just me talking. Okay, so in terms of entrance and speed, fascinatingly, Artur and Yuzuru's quad axel entrances are completely different. Artur barrels down the ice super fast in a straight line, Tanya Harding style. On the other hand, Yuzuru's entrance is just a little bit slower and interestingly relies a little bit more on rhythm and edges and a power pull to help him get up into the axle. So these are just very different entrances and at least to some extent, they both work. Okay, in terms of height and length, first of all, they both jump so high, it's insane. Artur's might be just a hair higher, but slowing them down frame by frame from entrance to landing, it's not more than like maybe 1 frame difference. So I would say it's really pretty equal. I think Artur might get just a hair more in terms of length as well, probably stemming from the fact that his entrance is a little bit faster with more speed. But that doesn't matter like that much. Anyways, both are amazing in terms of kind of the height and length of the jump. So in terms of rotation and landing, first I'll talk about the air positions. Both have tight air positions. However, both of them are ever so slightly open in the air. So as I mentioned in my Yuzuru Hanyu quad axel video, his elbows are a little bit like this, and he does it, I think he does this on most of his jumps really. So there is just like there is some room for Yuzuru to get tighter in there. And then there is like some little room between his legs as well. In terms of Artur, he's a little bit more down in terms of his elbow. So he's like tighter in that respect. Although I think that his hands are maybe a little bit farther out. So like if I were to exaggerate, Yuzu's are like this and Artur is like that, if that makes sense. And then in terms of rotation, I know this is what everyone's waiting for. So in terms of like what the actual judges gave the skaters in these respective competitions at the respective national championships, Yuzu got a downgrade, which means that it was downgraded to a triple axel. So he attempted the quad axel, but it was only counted as a triple. And that means that he was basically half or more cheated or under rotated. By the way, guys, maybe I should make a separate video on this. Cheated does not mean I think anyone is cheating in a competition. It's a skating term for under rotating a jump. So please don't think that I think that any skater is cheating in competition. Yeah, so Yuzu's was at least about half under rotated. And then in terms of Artur's, he was given a under rotation, so less than a downgrade, which means that he was between the quarter and the halfway cheated or under rotated mark by the judges. And what do I think of that? Drumroll, please. I agree with the judges. If you see Yuzuru's landing, as I said in the past video, it's definitely kind of like at the halfway mark. It's 2-footed. It's definitely downgraded, I would say. And then Artur's, if you really slow it down, he gets similar airtime to Yuzu, but he just has that hair more kind of height and rotation. And I think that he's actually pretty close to the quarter mark. Like it's definitely under rotated, but it's actually like almost pretty close to the cube mark, I would say. And it's pretty clearly under the downgraded. So as in, it's pretty clear that it's not downgraded. In terms of the overall thoughts on these two skaters' attempts at the quadruple axel, what's so fascinating to me is that their quadruple axels in so many ways look so different, from the entrance and speed, from, you know, Artur's just straight line barreling down like Tanya Harding down the ice entrance versus Yuzuru's kind of more ebb and flow with the rhythm, to the kind of a little bit different air positions, etc. They're both quite different, but they're both close. In general, in skating, the harder a jump gets, the more kind of perfect technique you need to have, or rather, the more punishing bad technique is. So there's no like one perfect technique at all in skating, but there are some that are better than others. Think about it. If you have kind of a bad technique, like you could pretty easily, in some cases, rotate one rotation in the air or two. Even if you're funky in the air, whatever, it's not that hard. But when you have more time in the air, like more time for like things to go wrong, you really can't afford any like bad technique. So anyways, all that is to say is I think it's so exciting and so interesting that even with like the hardest jump in the world that no one's ever landed, arguably the hardest jump anyone's ever gonna do, it's fascinating that there are different approaches and different techniques to it. And maybe in a few years, you know, many people will be doing it and it won't be surprising at all. Honestly, that's what happened with like a quad toe, for example. People used to think that it was the hardest thing in the world, and now people are doing quad toes all over the place with different techniques. So maybe it'll be like that in a few years, but for now, it's still just really impressive and really cool to see. Overall, to me, these two attempts are both so strong. Just wow, I'm amazed at both of them. Kind of similarly to what I said in the Yuzu video, they both look like they could land it. Like you can see it, that they could land it. They're just so close. They just need that last bit of rotation and then they're there. And like they both really have that feeling of the quadruple axel, I feel like. I mean, they're straight up in the air. They go into it confidently with so much speed. I was shocked watching Artur Dmitriev just go down with so much speed. Like that was just wow. Like neither of them are afraid of going into this jump. Overall, I will say that I think Artur's looks a little bit more like muscled and less effortless. And kind of all things equal in general, as I said, something that looks or is more effortless is generally a little bit better technique. So I would say overall, I'm almost leaning a little bit more towards Yuzu having like a slightly better technique in a way, and Yuzu really using his edges and his flow and his rhythm in order to achieve that height and everything that he needs. Also, I'll say this is just me, maybe just speaking from my own mind, but I'm just trying to imagine both of them kind of like in the future. Let's say that they both get clean quadruple axles, that they both land in competition. In my mind, Yuzuru's looks more like something that could be clean and consistent. Maybe it's also because, Yuzu's triple axel is just so amazing, so consistent. He always lands it. It's so effortless to him. So, but also just it looks pretty stable. Like I feel like if you just got the extra rotation, I could see him landing it multiple times in competition. Whereas Artur's, it's almost like, I don't know, it looks a little bit like it's just like a Hail Mary. He's just going for it. I mean, clearly he's worked on it and he's familiar with it. So maybe it would be consistent, but it just, again, maybe just that it seems more muscled and a little bit less based off of a rhythm and cadence and more just based off of like willpower and going for it. I don't know. I could be proven wrong, but that's just my initial thoughts on that. However, Artur's is, as of these specific attempts, I think he is just slightly closer and beat Yuzu just that slight bit on rotation because his was under rotated. So that's pretty exciting. Anyways, that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. Overall, both such great attempts, super exciting to see. You know what? Let's hope Nathan Chen does a quad axel attempt out there sometime soon, maybe after Olympics. And who else would do a quad axel? I don't know. Everyone, let's do a quad axel. Woo! Anyway, so it's super exciting. Hope this video was interesting or helpful. Let me know. Always love your beautiful comments down there. And yeah, that's all I have.